Hi, this is Becky. Welcome back to my channel. In this video, I'm going to be reading the daily devotional for day 9. This is part 1 of your spiritual inventory. When we began our recovery journey, we were anxious to complete the process as quickly as possible. And over time, we realized that our hurts, hang-ups, and our habits hadn't developed overnight, and they weren't going to instantly be removed either. The 8 principles provide an action plan that allows us to continue to work on our recoveries. A married couple had been separated for 5 months before getting into recovery together. 6 months later, they renewed their marriage vows in order to celebrate their 25th wedding anniversary. The couple decided to schedule a trip to Europe. However, there were so many details to consider that they began to feel overwhelmed. They decided to form a plan of action that involved breaking the arrangements into smaller, bite-sized pieces. They chose the destination, made reservations for air travel and hotel accommodations, collected maps, researched the weather, and selected and packed their clothing. They also had to learn about the differences in currency, cultural mannerisms, and driving rules. For example, driving on the wrong side of the road. Planning the trip took a good deal of time, persistence, and patience, but they ended up having a wonderful adventure to commemorate their years together. The goal of the spiritual inventory are 1. To form a closer relationship with our higher power, Jesus Christ. 2. To forgive ourselves and others for our past. And 3. To become spiritually healed. To be successful with each of these objectives, a course of action is required. When completing the participants' guides, we need a private place and a scheduled time to work on our answers. It's critical that we stay connected with our accountability partners and sponsors so that we don't feel alone. We need to learn how to keep our answers balanced with regard to our weaknesses and our strengths. Although this will require time, persistence, and patience, we'll ultimately be able to celebrate the adventure with a changed life. Most of us don't like to look within ourselves for the same reason that we don't like to open a letter that we know contains some bad news. But remember that we need to keep our elevation, our inventory, balanced. It's critical that it take into account both the good and the bad qualities that make us who we are. As you begin to work on your spiritual inventory in Principle 4, you need to look at several areas of your life. Before launching into this endeavor, pray this prayer. Search me, God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. Psalms 139:23. The first area that we need to evaluate is that of our relationships with others. And in Matthew 6:12-14, Jesus instructs us to pray. Forgive us our debts as we have also forgiven our debtors, and lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. For if you forgive other people when they sin against you, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. In this area of our spiritual inventory, we explore our resentments and our grudges, and we determine whether we're jealous of someone else. Take the time to evaluate whether you've been blaming others for your own ill-advised choices, and be sure to list those people you've hurt, been critical of, or gossiped about. The second area to explore is that of our priorities in life. We naturally do what's important to us. Others identify our priorities by our actions, not our words. Matthew 6:33 tells us what will happen if we make God our number one focus. Seek first His kingdom and His righteousness, and then all these things will be given to you as well. In this section, seek to identify those areas in your life in which you're still not putting God first. Notice whether or not your priorities have been self-centered or self-serving. Examine the possibility that misplaced priorities may have had a negative effect on those close to you. The next area of our spiritual inventory involves examining our attitudes. Ephesians 4:31 counsels us to get rid of all bitterness, rage, and anger, brawling and slander, along with every form of malice. Look for areas of your life for which you are ungrateful. Reflect upon whether you've been easily angered by or sarcastic toward someone else. Explore why you're still fearful of certain people and situations. The fourth area to look at in this part of our spiritual inventory is that of our integrity. In Colossians 3:9-10, we're instructed, "Do not lie to each other, since you have taken off your old self with its practices and have put on the new self, which is being renewed in knowledge in the image of its creator." Look for areas in your life in which you've been dishonest, areas in which you may have exaggerated your own good qualities or achievements to make yourself look good. Examine whether or not you live one way in front of your Christian friends and another way at home or at work. Here's something to take a look at before you check out the next video. Take a look. What do you see as the major reasons some of your relationships have been lost or are less than they could be? What are some of the positive priorities in your life? Which priorities do you need to change? How do you go about maintaining an attitude of gratitude? And how would you rate your integrity? Do others trust you to follow through on your promises? All right, I hope you have a blessed day.